Well, g'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Episode 6 of Adelaide Conservatives. Thanks to everyone that's been tuning in so far. It's been a pretty successful start to this podcast, and it's clear to me that there is a pretty deep-seated Conservative voice here in the southern suburbs and Adelaide in general that just want to have a Conservative point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And just look at some of the guests that we've been able to get into. Like that's fantastic. Having Alex Antic, having Ben Hood, John Elferink so far, and we've got plenty more guests to come. And look, talking to all the guests, and they've all got a common story really about how tough it is sometimes being a Conservative, being a sensible person in an atmosphere that's filled with woke leftists.
Well, it's a woke leftist where logic gets thrown out the window and any reasonable argument can't be had. The days of a political argument where people are having those differences of opinion and arguing them in the chamber almost seem to be dead. But having a look at a few of the guests we've had, Alex Antic, Ben Hood, these are the young people in Parliament now. They're going to really push those Conservative values forward and make it okay to be a Conservative and to execute those arguments with a bit of pride.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, let's face it, even when the Liberals were in power, or I guess your so-called more conservative government was more in power, those voices went quiet. It's like they were afraid to speak their mind and afraid to talk about their actual real world views. And fortunately, because of guys like Alex Antic and like Cory Bernardi and people like that and Ben Hood, the Conservative voice is back.
No, definitely. So please, if you've been following our podcast, like it, subscribe it, give it a 5-star rating, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. The more people that get on and post like and subscribe, the more people we can get these Conservative voices out to, and that's going to be better for everyone, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we're going to continue. Like I said, we're going to continue to have new guests, and we've got Sarah Game coming in very shortly. We've got a few other ones in the pipeline too, which it's not all just going to be Liberal politicians. They're going to be generally people with conservative values. That's what we're interested in.
And by all means, if you know someone out there who's either a Conservative politician or someone in the business field or someone that does anything in the community that you think would be good on this podcast, send us a line and we'll try and get them on.
Yeah.
Having a look, Luke, obviously the biggest topic that keeps coming up with all of our guests at the moment is the voice to Parliament.
Yeah.
It is the singular topic that everyone is discussing at the moment. Some really interesting polling starting to come out where I think 2 states at the moment are now below 50% support, one being Queensland, the other being
South Australia.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, you've got to, I mean, you've got to look at South Australia in general, and we're not a typically woke state. We might have a Labor government, but we're not woke morally. We're not woke politically. The only time Labor wins is when they come back to the right, and that's the thing. I think that's missed on a lot of people. South Australia Labor governments are generally of the right of Labor, and that's I think and probably a little bit more sensible than the Labor governments in other states and territories, and I think that's really showing with the sensibility coming out in that polling.
No, it certainly is. The vulnerability that they have, though, is that they still have a pretty powerful left faction to the Labor Party here in South Australia.
Yeah.
And the members we're talking about here is the Attorney General, Kyan Ma.
Yeah.
People like Katrine Hilliard.
Yeah.
These real far left backed members of the Labor Party but what's going to bring Malinas, because he's going to have to give something. So, and he already has. So I think when you look at things like the Voice Department, the state version of, or the gender-neutral language within Parliament, these are going to be pushed to the left, and he has to give them something to keep his own power of leading the Labor Party.
Yeah, look, it's not the right way to go, but he's given that stuff out of tokenism, really. I mean, let's be honest. People like Katrine and Kyan, they're never going to lead the state. It ain't happening.
No.
You know, so he's giving them something to stop them from squawking too much in the background, but that's really as far as it goes.
Yeah, no, definitely. When we do look at Kyan Ma, this week has been a big week here with the campaign we've been running.
Yeah.
Build the Whitten Bluff Base Trail project. For those of you that might not live in the southern suburbs and don't know what we're talking about, both myself and Luke and a whole bunch of community leaders, a lot actually, ironically, from the Labor Party or former Labor members, have been pushing to build a boardwalk that will link Christie's Beach to Port Noarlunga, a shared youth path. Now, this was held up by the Attorney General, Kyan Ma, for over a year.
Yep. Yeah, so basically, to try and make it as short as possible, there's a Section 23 in and around Indigenous sites, like sacred sites and so forth, that needed to be carried out on the site. And there's just plenty of studies over the years that have basically ruled out any tangible significance there, and that's been sitting on his desk for over a year. And now, look, we all know the reality is it's been sitting on his desk because he's been hoping it was just going to go away, and hoping it was going to go away with the election of essentially a Labor mayor to the city of Onkaparinga. Well, we've kept pushing, we've kept campaigning. It's been a community-led campaign, and they've rolled.
They have rolled. Well, we started to hear whispers from within the Labor Party themselves, and we're not talking one leak, we are talking multiple leaks from within the Labor Party at their branch meetings, that Kyan Ma was going to knock this on the head and try and get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Laura Henderson, MLC, fortunately, like we've been obviously discussing with her, and she's been able to raise a lot of important questions of Kyan Ma in the state senate, and I think that's pushed him into a corner where he's had to suddenly declare a conflict of interest so he doesn't upset his mob.
After a year of working on it, he's declared a conflict of interest. But now the good thing is,
he never looked at it. He never saw it.
No,
remember? No, remember in question time. Oh, no, I never saw it. I never looked at it. Yeah, my ass.
Yeah, you can't argue that it's taking over a year because we're working hard on it and there's a lot of things to do, and then you call the conflict and say, oh, I never saw it. I was never working on it. Hang on, it's just those two things don't go together. But that's the sort of stuff that you will see the left pull in, and that's one of the risks of the Voice to Parliament. This is a community project that was 2,000 signatures on petitions that was announced funding years and years ago. Everyone was on board, but when you go down that road, it can be just held up within these systems that, quite frankly, there's no basis to.
No, that's right. Look, it is a long story, and it's probably for another podcast. But to break down, basically, you've got the Kaurna people that you've got a few different factions within the Kaurna people, and that some don't care about the Whitten Bluff Base Trail being built, but the ones that support Kyan Ma really have some issue with it for some reason, and that's basically where Kyan was torn. Yeah, and so he had to handball it on to Susan Close to rubber stamp it because he didn't want to upset his mob.
And it's that sort of stuff, I think, in South Australia where the Voice will fall down. Because the Voice, if it was solely used to address some social inequality that was out there in some of the remote communities, that there was tangible outcomes to push forward results, to bring people to a better standard, I think everyone's going to support that. That's not what this Trojan horse is about.
No, it's not at all. And like at the state level, Voice, you just got to look at what's going on there. I mean, you've already got all of Kyan's Indigenous mates or people that are loyal to him from the Indigenous community lining up, jostling for positions on this Voice already. I mean, the thing's and they're all inner city types that aren't suffering. They're not in the APY land. It's going to be filled with a bunch of inner city leftists.
Yeah, no. Well, it's interesting. The state government has brought out its new commission report about leave entitlements to state government employees.
Yeah.
Now, this has just come out in the last week.
Yeah.
If you're an employee of the South Australian government, you are entitled to special leave outside of your annual leave or your normal sick leave or other special leave, doesn't count like that, to be a member of the First Nations Voice to Parliament.
Voice to Parliament, yeah.
Now, you still get paid for your day job.
Yep.
And you'll be then doing your Voice to Parliament duties on top of, essentially getting two payments, which people can argue
good for some
if they want or they're not. But what it will do is you can see the people who already have access to government, are working within government, will be the people that will have this voice. And people who are already forgotten or pushed aside or not listened to within remote communities, they're the ones that will be pushed to the side yet again, and it won't be addressing the problems that actually need to be addressed.
Let's be real about it, right? You're going to have this voice with it at the state level and then at a federal level, and it's going to be the same old people that have a say and have power now within the Indigenous community. That they'll just get a promotion. Like it's not going to change a thing for people out in the areas.
I tell you what, if you were Anthony Albanese right now, you're starting to get pretty weak at the knees, because you're looking at this polling that's come out, and you've got two states now, South Australia and Queensland, where it's starting to look very sketchy.
Yep.
This will not get up. You need a double majority in these things. So you need the majority of Australians, but you also need the majority of states. The trend nationwide,
which they've still got. Like
coming
from
down.
the polling, they've still if a referendum was held tomorrow, on the polling, it'd probably still just get up.
Yeah.
But you're right. The trend, it's going downhill because I think the biggest problem with this since the start has been detail.
Yeah.
And as people try and squeeze more and more detail out of this, it's just looking more and more like a poo sandwich.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the problem when they eventually get to a stage where they do a referendum. It's on the slide.
Yeah, and this has the quiet Australian written all over it. When you look at the polls, the yes vote is starting to come down. In fact, it had a big drop as soon as Peter Dutton came into the race and formally said no. He'll be against it. But the biggest concerning number for me that if I was Anthony Albanese, I'd be looking at is a 17 or 18% of people that have said they have not made up their mind yet. And if you think about this argument, if you're saying you have not made up your mind, I can almost guarantee you 90% of those people will be voting no.
Well, and that's correct, because the people that haven't made up their mind probably haven't. They're probably like going, I'll have an open mind to this, and they haven't made up their mind because they're waiting for more detail.
Yeah.
And as that more detail squeezes through, it's going to look less and less attractive.
Yeah. Or it's one of those cases where a phone canvasser calls you up, and because there's such a negative connotation towards voting no, people just feel like they won't say that, so they'll say, I'm still making my mind up.
It's going to piss people off. Just look at the television now. I can't turn on the TV without seeing an ad supporting the Yes campaign, and it's so disingenuous, the advertising too. I'm supporting a voice, a recognition of Indigenous people to the Constitution. It's like, yeah, that's great, but you're not telling the full story. Like the ads are absolute crap.
Well, Tony Abbott endorsed Indigenous perspective into the Constitution over a decade ago. Don't get confused with these two things. You can vote no and still believe that an Indigenous aspect needs to be incorporated into the...
They're asking two questions.
Yeah.
There are two questions here, and they're hiding behind the, don't you want Aboriginal people to be recognised in the Constitution? Now, I think if that was the referendum, you'd probably get 90% across the line. There wouldn't be a problem with that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. But when that's not, they're selling it that that's what you're doing. But no, you got this Trojan horse, this voice attached to it, which is just basically going to be a political tool for the left for decades to come. And like we keep saying, it's not going to do a thing for Indigenous
people. And hoping
people
on the flip side, they are hoping on the flip side that people also see that is if I'm voting no, I'm voting against putting Aboriginal people in our Constitution, and that is not correct.
It's emotional blackmail. Yep. That's what they're trying to do. Because look, let's face it, most Australians are pretty good people. We're pretty fair people. We want a fair go. And they're trying to wedge us between, I really want to give them a fair go because I want them recognised. But, like you said, if I vote the other way, I'm going to be labelled a racist. I'm going to be labelled all these other things, which is just a load of rubbish.
Crazy lefty losers, I think is something that the leader David Spears said during the week about Extinction Rebellion. Now, these people went to the Morfett Street Bridge. These are the people that come out every second week and glue themselves to the pavement, chug up traffic, not just in Adelaide, but every major city around Australia. These people were abseiling down the Morfett Street Bridge. The amount of resources, you think about our police, our fire force. On the news I saw...
ambulance service got to be there in case one of them slips and falls, and it's just an absolute waste.
One of the elderly women that was caught up in traffic was trying to get to the Royal Adelaide Hospital for an appointment for her lung treatments because she's got some really bad health issues going on. She missed her appointment. Now, this is just getting beyond a joke. I respect anyone's right to protest. That is a fundamental part of our democracy. People should be able to protest. But there's a difference between protest and public vandalism or
they're anarchists.
Disruption.
They're absolute anarchists. And just the irony of it, they're there with super glue, like a petroleum product. They're there with all their big plastic and rubber signs, petroleum products. It's like seriously, guys. Just the hypocrisy of these people drives me mad. And blocking up traffic, more emissions into the atmosphere. Oh, yeah, you can go on and on and on. Like these people are a joke.
Yeah. Holding up a sign that says ban fossil fuels, and the sign itself is made out of plastic. You just go, these people, do they see the hypocrisy in what they're doing?
Oh, yeah, and every single one of them own an iPhone, and every single one of them have a flat screen TV at home. Like the whole, it absolutely makes my blood boil.
you fast forward 24 hours, they're back at Santos. Seems to be their number one target here in South Australia.
Yeah.
By the way, Santos is a absolutely fantastic organisation. We should be all proud of as South Australians. The amount of South Australians that they have employed and had game employment. My dad's one of them, who's employed at Santos for 30 years.
Yeah.
It served our family very well.
Yeah, and I might just make a quick public disclaimer. I have shares in Santos too. Fantastic company. But yeah, no, you're right. And mind you, most South Australians somewhere along the line would have shares in Santos through their superannuation.
They certainly would,
including these clowns on the street gluing themselves to the road. You know? So
yeah. But as they've gone and they've been paint gunning or throwing whatever they are at Santos, what's on level one? Mum and dad family business cafe.
Yeah, which
They had to shut down,
wrecking their business
again. So many times they're having to shut down their business because these people think that they are more entitled than anyone else to have their opinions heard in this fashion.
Yeah, and look, it's always been the way. You go back 20, 30 years, it's always been the way. You get these green anarchist types. They're always driving the shittest cars that are emitting the most. They're always doing destructive things which are contrary to what they're saying about their environment. And we just keep taking them seriously. Now, I know they've got a right to protest, but gee whiz, if you're gluing yourself to the road and it's clear that what they're doing is just to agitate. It's not really doing anything.
And as soon as they're being released, the camera's there and they will all say, we're going to do it again.
Yeah, that's right.
So whatever is in place, your $300 fine or whatever it may be, it's not enough.
Yeah, they wouldn't be paying the fines, they'd be all their fines would be going to collections at some point in time. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. One of the other things that has happened here in South Australia, we touched on it before.
Yeah.
Gender neutral language throughout the state government.
Yeah, no, I'm not real impressed with Malley for doing that. There's lots of things that he's done for the state so far, which are good. But yeah, no, I think like we said before, he's bent to the woke left of his party. He's got to throw him a bone because they've really got not much to sing about there. And yeah, no, are we really that simplistic as a society that we have to pronounce who we are? He, she, him, they, whatever. This is nonsense. What? Can't we just be civil about it? Oh no, I really prefer you call me they. Oh, all right, no worries. So why do we have to have it written on every piece of paper that comes out of the government?
When again, what happened to freedom of choice in these things? So
yeah,
when you look at this, it goes down to even the title that the governor will have here in South Australia. So the governor will be, I think it's something like their worship or your worship, not worship,
they worship,
not worship, excellency. Sorry,
yeah,
their excellency. So they'll be introduced as their excellency.
Well, why? Who is this helping? Who is this saving out there by doing this crap?
This is the thing I don't understand. If there's a bloke in there, let him keep using His Excellency. If it's the current governor, Frances, she can use Her Excellency. If we have a trans governor, fair enough, it's the choice of the times. They can choose to call themselves Their Excellency or whatever they want to choose. Don't make everyone else give up their title for the sake of something that, by the way, we've never had in South Australia.
Yeah, it's I get it if an individual, right? I still think it's nonsense, right? Yeah. But yeah, out of respect for just people in general, if an individual goes, yeah, I want to be called the Rainbow Warrior when I'm the governor of South Australia, that's weird, but okay, I respect that that's what you want to be called. You can be called Rainbow Warrior or whatever you want to be called. But to change it so that it's a set thing going forward is an absolute nonsense.
It certainly is. These things will change. And when will we have a they governor? Well, at that time, let them choose themselves to be.
That's right. Why, guy? It's
their excellency.
Yeah. Why is there a need to legislate this? Why is there a need to have this set in stone? What happened to personal choice?
And where does this stop too? So that's the higher end of titles of the way that the government is formed. But this legislation means that all of the policies that the state government has through every one of their departments now has to go gender neutral. Now, we spoke about before the new leave policy that was a commissioner's report into.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're going to write a leave policy for maternity leave without using gender-specific names. Because right now,
We can all have babies, mate. Didn't you know that? Didn't you know that? Like, there's been over 8 billion people born on this planet, and for some miraculous reason, they were all born to women, but men can still have babies. Didn't you know that, mate?
well, of course they can, yeah, sure. But this is the thing. So if you are fortunate enough to be living off the government purse and have a cushy state government job, and look, I can't comment, I'm one of them. But if you are in that position, right, you are entitled as a female employee at the moment, if you have a baby, to have 6 months full pay maternity leave.
Yeah.
Where everyone in a average job out there is entitled to their 14 weeks minimum wage pay from the government.
Yeah.
If you work for the state government, you get your full 6 months at full pay, and then you can access the federal government's assistance of your 14 weeks at minimum wage.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to have that over a year at half pay, which is a very generous finding.
Yeah.
Obviously, as family units have changed over the years, they've introduced more. So if you are adopting a child, you have access to that 6 months. A lot more same-sex relationships are now happening.
Yeah.
If you are in a male-male relationship, you have a surrogate, you are entitled to the 6 months leave. It's now to the point where the only person not entitled to 6 months leave is a heterosexual male in a relationship that has a baby with a female. But they're the only people now that are not accessible to that leave.
That makes sense. But yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes perfect sense. But yeah, but you've got all these other avenues of people that are suddenly, it's messy.
Yeah,
they're probably having a whole overhaul of that system.
Yeah, but try and write that policy without using gender terms. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah,
because how do I say heterosexual males are the only people that can't have access to this leave? How do you write that without putting it in to a gender name?
People born with penises. I don't know.
It's going to be
you're right. Well, what do they say? Like, that's another thing that really makes my blood boil, is all that sort of nonsense too. Like, can't we just call a spade a spade? Like, we know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, the bloke with an Adam's apple that's wearing a dress. We know you were born a man, and that's great. But if you want to be called Felicity, go your hardest.
Yeah.
But let's not pretend that there's been some fucking transformation and we're suddenly something different. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Because what it means is, where does that line get drawn? Because if I have to say that, it's one thing, I always respect someone that says, a bloke now wants to be called Sarah.
Yeah.
If I'm at the pub and they're there, I'm going to call them by their name.
Yeah.
Right? I'll say Sarah. That's fine. I'm not going to embarrass them in front of a public thing. That's not what the Conservatives' voice on this is about. But where do you draw the line? Because if I then have to say that, no, you actually are a female, there's no distinction between you and any other female, then there's other things that this will come into, which could dispower people who are born with the full female reproductive system. So sport is one of those. We're seeing more and more male trans athletes transitioning to females that are winning, and not just winning, smashing records in their events.
And the thing with it is, right, and a lot of people go, oh, yeah, we've got to be inclusive and all that sort of stuff. But we're not seeing women, trans men that were women, going into men's sports and setting the world on fire, are we?
No.
It's destroying and tearing down female sport. Yep. People who are biologically women, it is destroying their sport. And we see examples in the States all the time. We saw an example the other day with a cycling race somewhere over on the East Coast where, transgender woman wins the race and couldn't understand for the life of her why none of the other competitors would stand on the podium with her, he, whatever. Like, I mean, because they're ripped off.
Yeah.
You've destroyed that sport. You've destroyed that event forever now by having some bloke, essentially, go up there and take...
It is disempowering females.
So
it's not just sport. It seems like as a country now we're hell-bent on going down a path of gender equality in everything up until Parliament. Yeah. Okay, well, what happens with trans politicians now that want to be...
How do you decide, like... Because, I mean, that's the other thing that's freaking drives me nuts as well. Is you've got...
No,
You've got them going. Yeah, lots of things drive me nuts. You got people out there going, oh, an International Women's Day, or we need women, more. Like these people can't even define what a woman is. Like the thing is just laughable. You know, like they seem to be able to define a woman when it suits them or when it suits their narrative or whatever agenda they're pushing. But when it comes to reality, they're suddenly lost at sea. Oh no, that's complicated. Like, fuck, you know, if I hear another doctor or another person that's highly educated tell me that it's complicated to determine what is a woman, I was going to lose it.
Oh, and it's funny how people that run on these crazy ideological standpoints, they'll come out and stay in front of Parliament that we need 50-50 gender representation in this Parliament. That's what we need.
Yeah.
And then they're at the next Pride March saying that there's 100 genders. Well, hang on. If you want gender equality, why are you saying 50-50?
Well, yeah, let's have gender equality for X, Y, Z, whatever.
It doesn't exist.
Number of genders are out there. You know, let's have equality for all. Like the whole thing's a load of crap.
Yeah. And equality is actually a really good term, but equality of opportunity is what we should be striving for. In fact, it's what we have as a modern society. Up until the last 5 years, we've always strived for equality of opportunity. I'm not going to tell you have to get into that type of work. I'm not going to say that we need exactly 50% over here. But if someone wants to take that position, they should have the same opportunity to take that with both hands and run and do it. But
and they
want to
do,
get that. If
they
want to
do have that same opportunity.
They do.
But circumstances, like, you know, we've talked about it in another one of our podcasts, circumstances for women sometimes get in the way.
Yeah.
Women have children. And, you know, and like I said, 8 billion times that's happened, you know, so far with people on Earth. It's only women. They have children, and that does interrupt their careers.
Yeah.
And you know, so, yeah, all this, yeah, this stuff's just insane. We are slowly sliding into this deep hole on this.
And what I would say to all conservatives out there is where sometimes these policies that come out, and on an individual policy, you could be excused for thinking, okay, what's the harm in allowing that one? But remember, there's always another.
There's the old slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. There's another one coming, and there's no end point. So you wake up overnight and you realised, hang on a minute, we've changed our country fundamentally from what it should be doing. All Australians, you said before, we're a fair go.
That's right.
You get in, you get out what you put in. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, trans. I tell you what, we know a lot of conservatives, and if there's a trans person out there that comes out, Bob now says he's Sarah, and the conservatives can say that that person is working hard at their career, they're doing the right things, we'll be the first to say, hi, that person. If they're doing well, if they're going to lead to better productivity for my company because they're a hard worker, they understand their work, that'll be the first person employed. It's got nothing to do with your gender if you're going to get employed.
No, that's right. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, let's be real. It's about the person, the quality of the person, quality of their soul. You know, I mean, that's what that's how you're interacting with people, and that's how when I hire people, you know, I don't care what their background is, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't cope very well if I was having something jammed down my throat that I must do this, I must do that. Like that's a different story. And that's what's happening in a lot of workplaces around the place. You get people that get in there and they're activists and they're actually troublemakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if a transgender person was working for me, like we said before, and then they want to be called, you know, Felicity and they're really frank, that's fine. Right. But don't jam your ideology down my throat or my other staff's throat. That's one thing that I won't cop with that. And that's from anyone. That doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what their ideology is or what they're trying to push. Don't come into workplaces and be disruptive for the sake of being disruptive. It basically makes you an activist, not an employee.
Yeah. And it's a hard line because I think we talk about, you hear people like Senator Antic talk about the slow creep through our institutions.
Yeah.
So the left...
I don't think it's that slow. I think it's marching through.
It is now rapidly going through.
Yeah.
So you look at the institutions that we have now. Universities was the first to fall, I think. That went very quickly to the left. Now, I was at a family dinner the other night, and there was someone who was associated with the family but not in the family, who was a linguistics PhD.
Yep.
Who was lecturing or supporting lecturers in the university system in architecture.
Okay. Yep.
And I've just gone to my head, one-on-one, I actually really enjoyed talking to this bloke. He was a nice, friendly, bubbly bloke, like having a drink with him.
Pretty articulate and pretty intelligent.
Yeah, like we had great discussions with him. I really enjoyed his company. But as a systematic thing, I went, hang on a minute, you've gone from school to university, you've got a PhD in linguistics, and now you are lecturing on architecture, something you don't have a degree in. Well, hang on a minute, where's the real world experience? I want the next generation of kids going to study architecture, having real world experience, saying, it's great to have these big plans about all these things you want to do, but is this building practical? How's the things going? All those sort of things. That's what I want. I want some experience in there.
Unfortunately, in education, I think in a lot of cases, the only place you really find that is TAFE. Most TAFE lecturers, not all, most have had a background in the field they're teaching. But when you go to university, most professors are institutionalised.
Yeah.
Most lecturers are institutionalised people, so they've spent their whole life in school. So when you think, like, I couldn't think of anything worse, but that's what they've done, and then they're trying to teach the future leaders of Australia how it really is out there, and that's why we've got a problem, because the people doing the teaching have got no idea how to run a business. They got no idea, and that's not all of them, but on a large percentage of them would have no idea how to run a business. No idea about what their average struggle is for an average Australian, down here in the southern suburbs. They're just clueless.
Yeah,
they think they know. They think they know because they're academic elites.
Yeah.
So they think they know, and therefore they think they should have a right to be able to tell us how we should be.
Yeah, and a lot of their academia side of their work is sound, true, and solid, but there's a difference between that and enforcing that in a workforce.
Yeah, in the real world.
The real world is so different to a university. Like my career outside of politics has been working and employing teachers. Now, you can generally, when you're interviewing someone, work out in the first 5 minutes if they're going to be a good teacher.
Yeah.
One, it's their personality. I don't care what degree you've got. If you are a person that's going to relate and be engaging with students, that's the biggest thing that's going to make the big difference, right?
Yeah.
But as a percentage, and this isn't the whole story, people that have had a trade that become a tech teacher, or people who have worked in the arts becoming a drama teacher, or people who have gone and did a couple of years doing working for a reporter and then became an English teacher, do fantastic real world stuff with the students, right? They just live and breathe it.
Yeah. They could talk about when I was working at like doing this job, which is what you can probably lead yourself to by excelling in my subject.
Yeah.
When I was doing this, they could have that story, whereas it's pretty hard for an institutionalised type teacher to go, well, my professor said, I can
tell you right.
That's exactly where you're going.
If you've been a chef in a commercial kitchen and you go out and you get your teaching degree in home and economics, you'll get a permanent job like that.
Yeah.
You understand how to transition these kids, not just to teach them the skills, but to teach them the skills to be employable and to be successful in the workforce. And that's what we should be doing, getting these kids into their careers and getting them successful sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
That's just my take on that. And that's just the universities. That's the first institution that was taking over. We look at Parliament and local government, all these things that the left have just taken over complete control of.
Yeah.
Where do you see the right coming back? If you were there sitting at Liberal Party HQ or wherever it might be, what would be the first targeted spot you would go, hang on a minute, there's some room for us to make some leeway here?
I think because of how it's been structured, and it goes back to the university and then basic school system, I think you're going to struggle with people under 35 years of age, because they're kind of institutionalised too. They've spent most of their life in that system, in a system that's very got far left ideology, very woke sort of institutions. So I think most of those people you've lost.
Yeah.
The people that you're going to get back, and the sensible people, and this isn't just liberal people or Conservative Party people. I'm talking some Labor people too. They're people that are like 35 plus. They've been in the real world, seen how things work, realised that if you actually have a go and put a bit of effort in, Australia's pretty kind to you. And those people are the ones that I think you'll see coming back further to the more conservative type politicians, type governments, all want to have those types of institutions in place. I think the people that are coming straight out of university, you've lost them.
Yeah.
And if they stay institutionalised, you've lost them for their whole life. But if they actually get out, which most of them have to, because most of them don't get those institutionalised jobs, I mean, if they get out in the real world and actually work for someone or work for themselves, you'll find that they're the people that conservative politicians need to target.
Yep. And as you said, the people that are institutionalised, you're not going to get them back, which is why if you're on the flip side at Labor Party head HQ advising the Albanese government or the Malinowskis government, you want larger institutions, more people.
That's correct, and that's
exactly bureaucrats within the system.
Well. Yeah,
voice to Parliament. That fits that
it's a massive
very well,
and that's a trouble, right? And I'm not saying that just if you institutionalise and you work for the government. I mean, you work for the government, but I'm not saying that means that you're trapped in this, like this woke utopia. There's still lots of sensible people in there. Most people in there are in a comfort zone.
Yeah,
and they like big government because big government pays them. Big government looks after them, and they like it. It's almost sounding communist, isn't it? Yeah, but that's what they like, and that's what they get used to. So they can't see a world outside of that. And the reality is, the world outside of that pays our bills. Small business, big business, mining, those people that actually have a go and have a punt is the only reason we can have all these wonderful social programs, and we can have an attorney general or a governor general wanting to call themselves they or them or whatever, because of that.
Well, I'd say I probably do work in a woke utopia, but it is.
But I was saying you're not woke.
No,
not that it's ever occurred to me that you are, but yeah.
No, we saw it during COVID, right?
Yeah.
So nothing pronounced this more of the my own rights versus anyone else's more than the lockdowns.
Yeah.
When that first started in South Australia, I saw government employees that were saying, "Oh, we can't come to work. Why are we going to work?" We saw it in schools. Teachers, look, don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound like I'm beating up on teachers. Teachers do an amazing job. But when there were some teachers out there saying,
"My wife's a teacher, by the way,"
she'll hate you for saying that.
Yeah.
When teachers are out there saying, "Why are we made to go to work? We're putting ourselves, our families at risk." Well, you're going to work to look after kids of paramedics. You're going to work to look after the kids of nurses who are at work themselves, putting themselves on the front line to protect the community during that time.
Yep.
You're happy to finish work and go down to your local supermarket where teenage kids are serving you your groceries every day because that's part of the way the world works. Look, we're all selfish in our own ways, but COVID really highlighted how selfish some people are, and how much some people take things for granted as well. Like the people, the government employees, that they didn't not get paid, they kept getting paid. There's cafes and restaurants they had to shut. Yeah,
they went basically to the wall. A lot of them, especially in Melbourne. Like if you go down Lygon Street now, just half the restaurants aren't there still. They still haven't come back. Like that was just devastating for Melbourne. But the people with the government jobs, and a lot of these people making these decisions too, they weren't affected one iota. They were inconvenienced. That's all they were. They weren't actually affected. It wasn't life-changing for them. Whereas what they and that's where I think the whole thing was really inconsiderate of governments in general, was the fact that the backbone of the country, small business, that's who employs nearly everyone, was basically screwed.
Because they're the middle ground Australians, those middle income earners that never get the benefits on either side of these arguments. They're the ones that always get left behind.
Yeah. You had JobKeeper and you had all that sort of stuff, but it was just a headache. Like I went through that whole process myself. It was absolute pain in the ass to get this paperwork done and it was just, it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the same to have your business shrink by half overnight. Oh yeah, but by the way, we're going to pay you to keep a few people off unemployment benefits. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that the state government employees, their benefits are a bad thing, right? But when you have them, you can't take a benefit without the responsibility. So I certainly felt that when I had this thing, I didn't take any time off from working from home. I came in every single day because I felt like, geez, I'm on something good here. If I can come into work and make...
You would have seen plenty of teachers just go, oh, I can't come back in the classroom because I'm afraid of the Wu flu. You'd have had plenty of that, I'm sure.
And look, in the early days, some of them, fair enough too, they had pre-existing health conditions.
They're 80 years old.
Sort of things. Well, a lot of the teachers maybe,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. But, the majority of them probably went...
Hypochondria.
A lot of them went, well, here's another day off, here's another week off.
Yeah.
Whether
Because they've got the luxury of being able to do that.
Yeah.
And that comes back to what we were saying about institutionalized type people that have only been in the education sector, like basically through their own schooling and then into government jobs. That they've never actually, yes, they work, everyone works, but they've never actually had to really work and produce something.
Yeah.
They're just basically rolling into a job where it's a certainty you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
And you can stuff up as much as you like. It's very, very hard to move you on.
And a lot of them work bloody hard, don't get me wrong. Some of the conditions of what you've got to put up with now as a school teacher is very different than it was 60, 70 years ago. There's
there's no discipline.
There's no discipline, the way that students treat you, the backup you might get when that happens. But you can also see on the flip side, when you get so many great benefits, if you haven't worked in the real world and you don't understand the big picture of how the whole economy works as much as you might, then you love your benefits because it's good for you and it's good for your family. So the first thing you would do is sign up to your union to not just protect those benefits, but to argue to get more and more and more because
it's
personally, it's your family, and in a way you can't begrudge that.
No, it's all. No, we live. Look, we all live in a world of complete self interest to some degree. It's and that's what government departments and unions that are applicable to governments. That's really what they're about. It's all self interest. The union wants to get a pay rise because they want their delegates to still be there, so they can get paid a poultice for basically collecting your $18 a week, and it just goes on and on and on.
No, definitely. Well, Luke, I think it's been another good week, but please, as we said, like and subscribe to this podcast. We want to keep producing more of these episodes, talking about in-depth. We want to get a bit of maybe even field reporting if we get opportunity. But we can't bring that to you without you liking, subscribing, sharing it to your friends. Let's spread the word, and we're going to get some pretty big name guests on here. We'll get them on for sure.
Easy.